seems, especially going forward, we're basically going to be writing a script saying, hey, these are all of the needs and the parameters for this plan or this building, and it'll be like, here it is. I mean, I think that's kind of, or here's all of the different options and here's the most efficient, but all of that still comes down to what's that proper input data, and is all of that accurate, and or especially continuously updated. And it's quite interesting to me how, even though we build all these buildings, especially the architects, it's like, okay, it's built, I'm done, and then they don't really ever go back and look at it or collect data. The only one I can think of offhand, and I'm sure there's more today, but the New York Times building by Prince of Piano, how it actually intakes some data to try and regulate its overall light usage. But beyond that, it's like, well, could we actually analyze how efficient this factory is being with a computer versus by hand, and or in or insert any program here, that I feel we're thought that will be out of a job, but the job's definitely changing again. Just how you went through analog to digital, I think we'll experience that digital to the overused term of AI. And be interesting to see how that goes, which is why I've really been trying to learn some elements of coding and to try and marry those two versus having to draw everything by hand, essentially.
Well, I think there's going to be an aspect of that, certainly, that, the buildings that you see that are, plopped along a highway that are, intended for, that are developer driven. You're going to see the analytics of those go to something of, well, here's the most efficient skin, here's the percentage of glass to a solid, to help maximize the cost. You're going to see the AI analytics of those things, crank those buildings out almost perfunctory. But and there's going to be a need for some of that, continuing, or probably a lot of that continuing. But I think it's the other kinds of buildings. It's the buildings that where people aren't just going for a few hours and then going home. It's the buildings that create places and spaces. It's the museums and the mixed use projects and the creation of community that you can't always do. You need the analytics to help manage, constructability and cost and so on. But I think I've said all, to you probably more than once, is that there was a brilliance about what Corb did, which was, creating, something that was absolutely rational. And within every one of those rational things, there was something that was unexpected. And you look at it and go, holy shit, how did he come up with that curve? Or how did he come up with that roof? Or how did he come up with that space? And so when he said that the architect was the pure marriage between engineer and artist, he played on both of those sensibilities. He played on the engineering sensibility and he played on the artistic sensibility. And he did more so on the artistic sensibility later on in his career because he had mastered the engineering side of it. And so he had allowed him to play more artistically. But I think in every building that has meaning, there's always something unexpected in it. That even if it's hyper rational to almost everybody who walks in, there's something that is, something that is impulsive, something that is personal, something that comes from the gut versus the head. That says this is the way it should be because it's going to make it different and interesting and resonate with a certain character.
Hmm. And
All the best buildings do all have that. They really do.
And it seems also, especially because this is almost a strictly modern phenomenon, but they're able to pull it off because they almost set up a rigorous ideology or a rigorous pattern, and then when it's able to be broken, that's when people, I think, recognize it more versus it just all being super crazy, and then people can hate it. I don't know.
So Stravinsky wrote a book called The Poetics of Music that is a short little book that you probably should read at some point. And he talked a little bit about this, that the compositions that in music that we hear that really, for lack of a better term, resonate with us are the things that have a certain pattern that is deliberate and intentional. And it's when those patterns are broken in music that you recognize it as something astonishing, something new, something that remains with you. I think visually we do the same thing. That there's certain patterns that we see, and when those patterns are broken, those are the things that are memorable about it. And so when I talk about the rationality of Korb, it's those moments where he was irrational and artistic that create something very memorable about the buildings that he's done. And you can track that really through, name a famous architect that you really like. You can see that in their work as well.
And then you almost hit to the craziness of today, and I put the two in like the most formal craziness, probably Gary and Tom Bain, because I don't feel Bjork is as free with the form. I feel he actually sticks a lot to the patterns or the very simple moves they make, and that's kind of it. Where Morphosis is just an entire composition in the building, and you almost kind of don't know where to begin the eye, and it just tracks and it tracks, and it isn't just about that formal beauty. So especially with Morphosis, they push a lot of different technologies and pretty programmatic ideas beyond, oh, this is pretty, I hope people like it. A lot of the things they do from the facades and so forth are very intentional, and they come from that technology or from that overarching idea. And